The government's new EV policy. This new EV policy has been announced by the government and it's designed to promote India as a manufacturing hub for electric vehicles. This policy states that companies will need to make a minimum investment of 4,150 crore rupees, set up manufacturing and then start production in India within a span of 3 years. Of course, a lot more has been said under this policy. What are the key highlights? My colleague Samir Dikshit earlier today has been looking at the EV policy and he's filed this report from Delhi.
Yes, definitely. The government has approved the new electric vehicle policy. The policy aims to promote India as the destination, a manufacturing destination for the electric vehicle. And the policy clearly mandates that the players like Tesla, who are giants in the electric vehicle space, not just Tesla, but similar other players, they will be allowed to have a limited import of cars in the country, and also a lower custom duty will be applicable. But the condition is that they have to set up a manufacturing plant here in India and also assure the investment, long-term investment in India in the electric vehicle space. So the policy clearly entails that a minimum investment of rupees 4150 crore has to be done by the EV player. Not just this, the maximum limit, there is no defined limit for the maximum investment, but in addition to this, the domestic value addition, a clear-cut preference, or it has been mandated as per the policy that 25% of domestic value addition has to be.
Well, that's a report as far as the new EV policy is concerned, but the stated target of the government, now this policy is going to work towards it. The policy is going to support the target of hitting 30% by way of newly registered private cars, that they should be EVs. When it comes to 40% buses also, commercial cars, two-wheelers and three-wheelers, there are targets to go electric by the year 2030. How much does this EV policy help in achieving those targets? Let's discuss this. We have a great panel of experts to understand the impact of the new EV policy on India's automotive sector. Auto industry veteran and former managing director of Nissan, Arun Malhotra, is with us, along with Gaurav Vangaal, who is the associate director at S&P Global Mobility, and Giridhar, the secretary of FADA, the Federation of Automobile Dealers Association of India, is with us as well. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for joining us. And this first question to you, Mr. Malhotra. According to you, who gains more from the new EV policy, Indian automakers or the larger global manufacturers like Tesla?
It definitely is focused on getting larger manufacturers like Tesla or VinFast into the country. Indian manufacturers, the homegrown Indian manufacturers, Tata and Mahindra, are already working on their EV plans and they've made it. I think the point which is important to note is at this point of time, the penetration of in four-wheelers is just 2.2%. And if we have to go to 30%, there has to be more vehicles in the mass market. Getting vehicles at 30 lakhs price, 35 lakhs price is not going to make the difference. There will be some entry level. So to that extent, this policy is only focusing on so that India becomes a global hub. I don't think the domestic market is large enough for that capacity. So that's a question, that's an area which has to be focused on. And the second part is the players who are really dominating the EV market, and especially at the mid-price level, are the Chinese. They have enough capacity in the country, and I don't think our government policy would be to get Chinese into this country. So it's a mixed bag, and I would call it's a mystery doll.
It's a mixed bag. Mr. Vangaal, your opinion on this? As part of the policy, the import duty has been lowered to get manufacturers started until they build their production facilities here. How important a piece is this to get more manufacturers to set up base in India, and how is it going to help them, according to you?
Vikram, few things are very clear here that this policy is going to help the manufacturing base, as Mr. Malhotra has also mentioned this. But it's a win-win situation, I would say, for the domestic car players also. Because initially they may get hit, but we do agree this, but in the mid to long term, the cost structures will get impacted and the lower cost structures will come from the new technologies, because the new suppliers will enter, the new technologies will enter, new car makers will enter. That definitely brings some of the benefit to the consumer, because there will be more competition in the market. And then yes, definitely this EV policy is specifically not only for the domestic side, it is also for the export side. And if you see current scenario, India provides a very good opportunity with this stable economy, stable supply chain. I think in a global context, if we wanted to see that we have the opportunity that globally people are moving from transiting from the new or the cleaner technologies. So India has to play their own role here. So it's a very welcome move from the government of India that they're opening the market, and the new entrants, those who are sitting on the fence, would like to join Indian market.
So we have two sides. At least Mr. Malhotra believes that this is a mixed bag. Mr. Vangaal, on his part, believes that it's going to be a win-win situation. Mr. Giridhar, where do you stand on the new EV policy? Because Mr. Malhotra started out by saying that it's the mass market in India that needs to be addressed at this point in time. Do you think this EV policy is going to help do it?
So, see, as far as the policy is concerned, it's a good positive step from the government side. So you'll have new players coming into the market. But simultaneously, I'll agree with Mr. Malhotra because, see, this policy is not aimed at bringing mass players into the market. So it's more tilted towards the luxury segment players because it clearly states that you can only import vehicles which are $35,000. So 35,000 typically means that the vehicle which a company brings in would be retailed around 42 to 45 lakh rupees because $35,000 is the threshold price. Then you pay 15% duty. Then there is a 5% GST. Then you pay logistics, insurance. So ultimately, the customer transaction price would be not less than 40 to 45 lakh rupees. So it comes into a luxury segment. And today, if you see, though the market in luxury passenger vehicle has grown by 114% over the 22 versus 23 if we compare. But if you see the luxury segment share in this particular category, it is merely 5 to 6%. So in 2023, we sold around about 82,000 vehicles. Out of 82,000 vehicles, there was roughly 4,500 to 5,000 vehicles which were of this particular segment or this price tag. So it is approximately 5 to 6% only. But simultaneously, I'd like to point one more thing over here. See, this policy should not be a testing ground for the bigger players, for the larger foreign manufacturers to come in India, test the Indian waters, and probably 2 years, 3 years down the line, if they feel that it's not a conducive market for them, because we've known over the years that there have been instances wherein the manufacturers, even after spending good 2 decades in our country, they've disappeared and they've left customers in a issue. So it should not be a testing ground for the larger players coming to India, because see, the only thing which the policy says, which I've read, is that a manufacturer has to give a bank guarantee. Now, the bank guarantee definition, I presume, would be the difference between 70% to 15% duty, which they are saving when they're coming into this policy.
Correct.
So if that is the only difference, I think people can build in that price,
right,
bring their vehicles, test the market in India, and if they feel it's conducive, they can continue, or else they can go back.
Mr. Malhotra, let me take that question across to him. Do you think that this would be a testing ground for several players who are looking at the Indian market very favorably, but perhaps they may not stay?
You know, since the government is talking of bank guarantee, now you have 2 conditions. One is there is a certain cap on the volume which you can import, and the difference between the 70 and 15% is the value covered by the bank guarantee. So if you test it, it will be a very, very expensive testing proposition. So I think to that extent, anybody who comes in will come with his ears and eyes open and will look at this market totally. So that is something which is important. So I don't think they can run away so easily, because this bank guarantee clause, which is put in the policy, if it is imposed and it is there, so you cannot just test the market and go away. But having said that, what Giridhar is also saying is that mass market is one which needs to be attracted, which needs to focus on. Because already our penetrations in EV are falling much short than what we have projected. And if we don't cover the market below 15-20 lakh rupees, that is where the action needs to be.
Right.
Because we have to make this mass transit.
Correct.
Otherwise, it will be a sub-segment. We might get some volumes in domestic market, but these companies will then really be focusing on export markets. So they have to see which markets they focus on.
Right.
That's the question. So a lot of things will happen in the next
What
few
about
weeks.
the stipulation about 25% of components to be sourced locally? How feasible is it going to be able to get that local sourcing requirement going? Do you see challenges on that front, Mr. Vangaal?
So that I think clearly...
Mr. Vangaal?
Yeah, I think definitely there will be a challenge on it, but that's why that's what I said, that the target is not only the domestic market. The target in front of the government and the global car makers is the export market, and to provide electric vehicles which can have a better competition, which has a frugal cost structures coming from the India. And the challenge will remain with the suppliers, but we have the good supply base, specifically in auto industry. And I think our suppliers are very keen to enter into the global EV supply chain. So I think challenge will be there, will remain there, but it is a good challenge which auto tier one suppliers would like to have.
This plays out. The new EV policy, already we have schemes like PLI and FAME, and now this new EV policy. So the focus to develop India as a global manufacturing hub for EVs, that seems clear. Now, how much of that can be achieved remains to be seen. Mr. Malhotra, Mr. Vangaal and Mr. Giridhar, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on this edition of India Tonight.